The top stories tonight. Central Bank of Nigeria raises monetary policy rate to 22.75%. Nigeria Labour Congress suspends two-day protest over economic hardship. Nigeria Customs Service suspends sale of seized food items over stampede. Senegal's president seeks to set date for delayed elections in ongoing crisis talks. Thank you for joining us on Tonight. I'm Felicity Eziwike. Let's begin in West Africa, where the Central Bank of Nigeria has raised its benchmark interest rate, known as the monetary policy rate, to 22.75%. This is the highest MPC rate increase ever, coming for the first time in 8 months. The cash reserve requirements was increased to 45%. This was announced by the governor of the CBN, Yemi Cardoso, who chaired the Monetary Policy Committee meeting for the first time since he assumed office in September 2023. In 2023, Nigeria's MPC adopted a distinct approach, steadily increasing the MPR across 4 consecutive meetings, ultimately reaching a substantial 18.75% by the end of the year.
We are working hard. We are putting out our policies. We're trying to avoid as much as possible not to go against the grain and the spirit of what we've said we would do. We're trying to be as open and transparent as possible. We're bearing the interests of all Nigerians in view with any decisions we are taking. We are ensuring that we put the country above individuals. Because, like I said before, and it also applies to this, Nigeria does not have the wiggle room to make failed interventions.
Earlier, economist and corporate finance expert Tilewa Adebajo was on the news to give more insight.
Money supply is now at 93 trillion. This time last year, money supply was only 53 trillion. So you have seen an increase of money supply by 40 trillion naira in just 1 year. So that shows you the amount of liquidity in the system. Inflation is now at 30%. Real rates and real yields are negative. And I think since July last year, MPR was set at 18.75. We haven't seen such an increase. So in the whole of last year, we saw maybe about a 700 basis points increase in interest rates. And with this move, we have seen just 400, which is good, because what will happen is that, for me, the ideal rate to bring inflation down to 21% will be 25% MPR. So I guess the central bank is working towards 25%, because the target for inflation reduction for this year is 21%.
To further discuss this, I'm joined by economist Aki Fatunke. Aki, thank you very much for giving us your time.
Always, Felicity. Good evening, and good evening, Nigerians.
Many analysts have predicted an increase in interest rate as the outcome of the MPC, and now we have 22.75%. Were you surprised by this?
Certainly not. I couldn't have been. As a neoliberal economist who have watched the trends and who have watched the brutality and the shocks that has rocked the global scene, of which Nigeria is at the bottom end, it was just waiting for it to happen. I wasn't surprised. And I also was not surprised because if you look at the OECD countries, the US, the UK, also going through some technical depression. I'm talking about UK. You'll find out that one of the things that they have tried to use. We talk of Yellen, if you talk of the Japanese CBN governor, even in Russia, it's the aggressive use of the interest rate. Now, when you have now raised it to the level that Mr. Yemi Cardoso has done, it tells me he has a view, his dream of a capacity to be able to help tame inflation. Whether we are going to be able to see that and do it still remains to be seen because of the dynamics of the things that we have in the economy. We are looking at the supply side. Issue is within the supply side. The speculation that have prevailed, the bad behavior that has happened even within the banks, the kind of trust deficits that keeps on greeting, every move of government, and overall that Nigeria is still not producing. We are still not producing. One single commodity, oil, diversification, we haven't done much. Security issues, still very much with us, and the fact that we still don't have a consensus, let me put it that way, a little consensus to say the things we should do. I like what Cardoso is saying as a communicator. It's not so much what he says, but look at his lips, that they are going to be very aggressive. And one of the aggressive things that they needed to do is to do regulation, pursue regulation as high as possible. We have discordant voices coming to try and put a spike in that book. Hopefully, we are putting that aside. And I hope the politics of that is going to be put aside in terms of moving, regulatory
talking about discordant voices, some have argued that cash push inflation can be curtailed by raising inflation rate. Is Nigeria experiencing this? And what other mechanism can the Apex Bank use to tackle inflation?
It is cost put inflation, Felicity, and absolutely it's gone on. Right now, the headline inflation is talking about 30%, and for people who go behind the scene, if you look at the Hanke inflation index in the real marketplace, not necessarily looking at the basket of goods, what you find is something over and above 30%. What is this therefore telling you? There is still some discordance, some dissonance between the monetary, trying to do the best that they need to do, and then the capacity for the farmers to take, whether you take urban inflation, whether you take the headline or you take food inflation, is such that it's still not measuring up. The small scale to medium scale farmers, the trust deficits that has happened in the past 8 years, I dare say, even a bit beyond, is still not restored because of the bandits and the terrorist action and activities. So I am not sure anybody who will deny. My mother in the village, Felicity, perhaps your mom will tell you that if she went in the rural area to the market to go see what she needs to buy, the prices have gone off the roof. It is also more of the capacity of the purchasing power, which the FPI has decided, because borrowing is going to go high. Yes, we could have inflow of FX when confidence is coming, but the SMEs, you and I, our capacity to be able to get cash to go pursue our dailies is still off the roof. It is there, and it is only when the clap comes with a right hand and a left hand, I'm talking about the monetary, I'm also talking about the fiscal, that we begin to speak a little bit much more to this factor, so that one will not be at a decibel, the other will be at the other one. But it is clear that Mr. Yemi Cardoso has retreated. Now, I'm happy about that. Forget about the din and the noise, very painful ones, there's no doubt about that, that we have that in the marketplace. Regulate, regulate, regulate. Infractions, that's the one I want to see. Infractions are quickly identified and heavily punished and penalized. You always find people who are doing some good things. It may be just one, just be two things. Can we bring them forward and then see that those are the kind of examples people should be following? It is a tough call. I dare say it's a tough call.
All right, I wish we had more time, Akin. Thank you very much, as always, for speaking with us. And by the way, my mom makes sure to update me on every price increase.
And when I looked at Felicity, when I looked at, you haven't told me, I haven't seen her, but I know she shakes her head to the right, shakes her head to the left. Felicity, my daughter, things are tough. Things are tough, but
yes, I have to do what I have to do. Thank you very much.
I agree with you, Felicity. Thank you very much for having me.
All right. All right, we'll go on a very short break, and when we come back, we have more stories. Please stay with us. Let's now turn our attention to the nationwide protest held across Nigeria by the Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC. The NLC on Tuesday night suspended its two-day nationwide protest. Labour, in a communique at the end of its National Executive Council meeting, said the objectives of the protest were achieved on the first day of demonstrations. Nigeria is battling rising inflation, food inflation, forex crisis, economic hardship, and high cost of living occasioned by the removal of petrol subsidy, attracting protests in parts of the country. The presidency had engaged Labour leaders in a last-minute talks on Monday night, but the meeting ended in a stalemate as the NLC insisted that the protest was going to hold. In the meantime, Nigeria's parliament has assured the nation's organized labor it will engage with the federal government to address demands raised by it. This was as members of the Congress took to the streets of Abuja, expressing their displeasure over the rising cost of foodstuff, escalating insecurity, and the failure of government to implement agreements reached with the union. Marvelous Obomanu completes the report.
The protest was called by the Nigeria Labour Congress, and it held simultaneously across many states of the country. Members of the organized labor converged on the Labour House, displaying several placards expressing their displeasure. The protesters then took to the streets of the capital, chanting songs of solidarity. Members of the Congress say government has not lived up to its responsibilities, thus the rising hardship being witnessed in the country.
This is not just a symbolic rally, but it is a rally to signal to the people in authority that there is problem in the land. People are dying of hunger. People are dying of banditry. Insecurity is everywhere. Kidnapping is everywhere. You kidnap a poor man, you ask for millions. Where is he going to get the millions?
This is not the first time we are here. We were here before. So it's because of their inability to take action that prompted us to be here today again.
The chairman of the Senate Committee on Labor and Employment was speaking to the protesters on behalf of the leadership of the National Assembly, assured that efforts will be done to address their demands.
We want to assure you that this letter will be discussed immediately at the plenary session. The leadership of the National Assembly feels what you feel. We will.
To their word. We would like to give them the opportunity to really see if they can act on what we have always been tendering. So we just want to hold on. Let's give them the chance to take our words home.
The Nigerian workers here have submitted their letter to the leadership of the National Assembly with the hope that the issues they have raised and canvassed in the letter will be adequately taken care of as promised by the leadership of the National Assembly. But the big question is, will there be anything different, or will it be business as usual, ending up in empty promises? Most of the Nigerian workers here will be hoping that their efforts will not end up in futility as usual. In Abuja for News Central, Marvelous Obomanu.
Still on the protest, the Nigeria Labour Congress Lagos State chapter Tuesday joined its counterparts in other parts of the country to embark on a two-day warning protest meant to raise alarm on the worsening economic conditions in the country. The labor unionists who turned out en masse staged a protest rally to the Lagos State House of Assembly, where they made their demands known. News Centre's Marshal Anthony Ononye was there and tells us more.
Members of the Nigerian Labour Congress in a protest march have stormed the streets of Lagos State to express their grievances over the current economic hardship. The protest, which began at about 20 minutes to 9 a.m. Tuesday, saw labor unionist activists and some members of the public who converged on Ikeja Underbridge, Lagos State, bearing placards and signages with inscriptions such as #EndHungerNow, #Reverse the Subsidy Removal, amongst others. Leader of the NLC Lagos State chapter, Comrade Fumi Sesi, who led the crowd, took few minutes to reel out the demands of the NLC while charging the crowd to ensure the protest is peaceful.
Employment generation through massive investment in agriculture and value-added manufacturing. Let us also open all the food storage silos and enforce equitable distribution of food across the country. Let us fix all the abandoned factories and revive our local production. And let us patronize made in Nigeria goods so that will reduce the FX, forex demands.
The State Commissioner of Police, Adegoke Fayo-Ade, who was visibly present, led a team of policemen as he encouraged the protesters to stay focused on the objectives of the protest, emphasizing the need to be lawful and peaceful.
We are going to give maximum protection. We will not allow any infiltration into this protest, and the protest will go on smoothly.
The 20 kilometers walk culminated at the Lagos State House of Assembly, where the Assembly members trooped out to address the crowd. Others who spoke to News Central stressed the need for government's quick intervention to ameliorate the plight of the people.
This more or less we still playing on the street. At the day of the revolution, police have no go wait. Soldiers have not go they first they bite themselves.
Once subsidy is removed, everything will be okay. That was what they told us. And now, this subsidy has been removed for close to a year now, and nothing has been changed. Nothing is different here.
If the government invest in the healthcare of Nigeria, would anybody be thinking of leaving Nigerian hospitals? If the government cannot stop themselves from going abroad for treatment, why should they stop the nurses from leaving Nigeria for a better tomorrow?
It will be recalled that a government delegation led by the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, George Akume, met with the leadership of the NLC, Trade Union Congress, TUC, and other labor leaders in Abuja Monday night in a last-minute attempt to get the labor union to ditch the planned protest. Nigerians will be desperately on the lookout for actions by government regarding these demands. For News Central, Marshal Anthony Ononye.
In Oyo State, Governor Seyi Makinde joined the state chapter of the Nigeria Labour Congress in its peaceful protest. During the protest, Makinde assured the protesters that the current hardship would soon be over. Let's also tell you that in Delta State, the affiliate members of the Nigeria Labour Congress, Delta State Council, in solidarity with Nigerian workers, participated in a mass protest against hunger and hardship across the country.
We expect the government to look at the interests of the masses, to see what they can do, at least to reduce the cost of living. House rent is high, food stuff and everything. Let them look into it and reduce it. That is what we are expecting.
We are here to plead with the governor to please help us. The masses are weeping. People are dying. No food, nothing at all. No light, no water. Our salary yet remains the same. We are here to plead with the governor to help us.
We have come to make this passionate appeal that our welfare must be looked into. Our minimum wage should be given a reconsideration. That 30,000 naira we are talking about can no longer. Even without the federal government implementation of any policy of any kind, we should think about our own internal mechanism, how our people can be better, while we are waiting for the federal government to implement whatever policy that they think is going to benefit the entire Nigerians. But we are here, we are in Delta State.
In Plateau State, the state chapter of the NLC gathered to protest the harsh economic situation in the country. According to the leadership of the labor union, the hardship experienced by many Nigerians is what government intervention.
to the federal government of Nigeria to do the needful before it goes beyond control. If you look at other states, they've already started the demonstration. Ours is peaceful for the time being. And we want the government to come into the situation and rescue the situation before it goes out of control. So what we are trying to do is, a cushioning effect, remedy of what we think the government will call. They should call the necessary institutions to checkmate the situation that's going out of control.
In Abia State, chairman of the NLC, Comrade Okoro Ogbonnaya, has accused the state government of not making workers' welfare a priority. In Adamawa State, the state chapter of the NLC gathered to protest the harsh economic situation in the country.
Nigerians are suffering. Sometimes last year we were here, we gave out our position, but I want to tell you that, Your Excellency, as from that time to date, the positions and the sufferings of Nigeria has further worsened. It has not been better even a bit. Your Excellency, the hunger has thrived, has blossomed.
Coming up, Nigerian customs suspend sale of seized food items over stampede. We'll bring you more details after the break. Stay with us. If you've just joined us, you're watching Tonight. A reminder of our top stories. Central Bank of Nigeria raises monetary policy rate to 22.575%. Nigeria Labour Congress suspends two-day protest over economic hardship. Nigerian customs suspend sale of seized food items over stampede. And Senegal's president seeks to set date for delayed elections in ongoing crisis talks. Good to know you're still with us. Two more stories on the impact of the rising cost of living. In the face of the steady depreciation of the value of the naira and the deepening standard of living, Nigerians are crying for help to the country's president to reverse some of his policies. Agitations and protests have been recorded both online and offline spaces across the country, while the government continues to plead for patience. News Centre's Adeshewa Udushoga reports.
Nigeria is a country with enormous economic potential, but is currently facing several difficulties that have led to widespread suffering among its people. The current predicament is complicated, but the economic hardship has since taken the cake, with outbursts and protests spreading across the nation.
Hunger and anger is what describes the mood of many Nigerians across the country amidst the economic crisis at this moment. At Ikeja, capital of Lagos, Nigeria, many residents are calling for help. It appears that they have had enough of the current economic crisis in the country.
Ebi pawo eni wala re jo o. Ebi pawo gbogbo ti won ju. Rice àti gààrí ó ti won ju o. Kò sówó iléèwé, kò sówó ìwé, kò sí kankan. Ọmọ adé ní ọmọ lọlé bá lọmọ ṣe fẹ́ sórí rẹ̀, ó jẹ́ gbogbo ọmọ wa sórí rẹ̀. Ẹ ṣàánú wa o. Ẹ ṣàánú wa ó ti pọ̀ jù. Sọ́fánẹ́sì ti pọ̀ jù. Wọ́n wá tó wà nílùú tó níbi tó jìnnà. A lè send owó sí wọn. Àwọn tó wà ń lu òkè, wọ́n tún ní ká máa fún wọn lówó ní kí ló lè tó ti pọ̀ jù. This suffering is too much. We are suffering and smiling. Even my two children is in university. Even coming for 200,000 3 days because my mother that helped me for 150,000 day before yesterday. Because she just get admission of recent. For me to add Gary from village to come to Lagos, is it easy? Cost of Gary is 2,800 naira.
The National Labour Congress is holding a series of protests across the country demanding the reversal of some economic policies of the President Tinubu-led administration, which also includes the removal of fuel subsidies. This motorist says it is becoming more difficult for commuters to afford his fees.
Epo 3,000 naira tẹ́lẹ̀, nísìnyí epo 11,000 la máa rà lọ. A máa gbowó láwọn àwọn èrò gan sanwó wọn complain. So I need kí ìjọba help wa kan jọ nítorí Ọlọ́run.
Gbogbo owó tán kó mọ́ra wọn lọ́wọ́ kan kó sílẹ̀ fún àmẹ̀kúnnù kó ṣàrà náà tó máa sáf torí pé àwọn gangan ni wọ́n kówó lọ́wọ́.
One of the most popular means of disapproval of government policies and performances in Nigeria is through protest, one that is sometimes laced with strategies or sponsored by the opposition. But in this case, the people are calling for an end to hunger drawn from the rising cost of living in the country. Many have also insisted not to join any form of protest, citing traumatic experiences from previous protests.
This is Garden Fawayeme Freedom Park, a park that is known to be the nerve center for all forms of protests happening in Nigeria. But in an unusual turn, the site is unusually empty, even amidst the series of protests happening across Nigeria. In Lagos for News Central, Adeshawa Odushoga.
To discuss the NLC protests, I'm joined now by labor law expert Ireoluwa Oguntueshe. Thank you very much for joining us.
Yes, thank you for having me. Good evening, Nigerians.
The latest we've had this evening, NLC has suspended strict actions for tomorrow, and the premise is that they achieved the purpose of the protest today. They said key objectives were overwhelmingly attained. What might these be in your view?
Well, I can remember vividly that I was interviewed by this TV station on the 2nd of February, 2024. And my view, when I was asked, is that in lieu of going on strike, that labor should hold, I called it picketing. Picketing is also a form of protest. So this is actually what is happening now. So it's a welcome development. But regarding the suspension of the protest, in relation to whether it has achieved its purpose, well, I think the purpose of the protest generally, is to exercise our freedom of expression under Chapter 4, Section 39 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, and to communicate to the government. Because, when there is a kind of distrust, or when there is a kind of disconnection, rather, between the people and the government, I think is very necessary, for the people to communicate to the government. And I think the challenges that this country is facing is very obvious and very palpable. Everybody can see it. It is very significant and very important for people to communicate their misgivings. Now, that being said, can we say that the protest has achieved its objective? Well, for me, I would say yes, and I would also say no. Now, yes, in the sense that there has been concerted efforts by the NLC and throughout the state of the Federation, communicating their feelings and communicating people's feelings. So to that extent, I think the government would have erred. But again, if we look at the history, between NLC and government, we can see that there has always been a sort of distrust on the part of the government in not fulfilling what they promise. So I just hope that on the part of the government, they will expedite action in bringing out people policy, that would ensure that the challenge in the high cost of living and the challenges people are facing, including myself, including everybody, that the government would ensure that the challenges, are quenched, if not totally ameliorated. Because the reason I'm applauding this protest is that we shouldn't wait till people come out. Now, there is general spread of hunger in the land, and any anger that is fueled by hunger is usually very, very serious. So I think the NLC is protesting on behalf of the people now, which is encouraging. So, and I think that the purpose of the protest, the government should have listened to it to achieve its purpose and not to wait for people, to come out and now start protesting.
You've acknowledged yourself that there is a distrust between Labour and government. Government have always sort of reneged or not fulfilled all the promises that they made. The new deadline now from Labour is the 13th day of March. They've extended their ultimatum by another 7 days. A minister from this government has said 90% of what Labour has demanded has been fulfilled. There is still that 10%. Do you feel that NLC is still agitating for the implementation of the 10%, or that distrust is still there, and come the 13th of March, they might be back on the streets?
Okay, so now let me first take your question by examining the 90% that you talk about. So when you say 90%, what are actually the particulars of the 90%? Let me talk about the minimum wage demands of 35,000. To what extent have the states fulfilled the minimum wage demand of 35,000? Because I'm quite aware that before that policy came out, pending the time that the minimum wage will be amended in accordance with the law, because it takes normally 5 years, pursuant to Section 3 of the Minimum Wage Act, the government had come out and to say that there will be at least 35,000 for everybody. To what extent has that been implemented? And when I'm talking of implementation of it, I'm talking of implementation across the Federal Republic of Nigeria, including the subnational or the federating units, which are the state government. Is not only the responsibility of the federal government. So when we're talking of fulfillment of demands, I think the minister should come out and lay bare or state the particulars of the labor demands that have been fulfilled. It is not just allocating percentage to it and now saying that 10% is required to be fulfilled. Now, another thing we also need to understand is that if 90% has been fulfilled, to what extent has people felt that we fulfilled this 90%? Because one thing is for you to bring out policies, one thing is for you to say that the policy has been implemented, and another thing is for the policy to have effect on the people. I believe that the purpose of the government, as recognized by the Constitution, particularly Chapter 2, is to bring out policies, economic policies, educational policies that people will benefit from. And
so am I inferring, in the interest of time, sorry to interject, Oluwa, am I inferring from what you're saying that there is every possibility that Labour might be back on the streets come March 13? They said they will re-strategize if the deadline comes and the government failed. In 30 seconds, if you can.
Well, I am not a member of the NLC, but I will encourage them that they should act on behalf of the Nigerians, and they should ensure that they continue to draw or incline the gaze of the federal government to their responsibilities. If in drawing their attention to responsibility, they need to peacefully protest, then let them protest. If in drawing their attention to their responsibilities, they need to organize press briefing, then let them organize press briefing. But the federal government at every point in time and every form of government must understand that they need to listen to the yearnings of the people. That's the reason they form this particular government. We voted them there, and they have a responsibility towards the people.
Thank you very much for speaking with us. We appreciate your time.
Thank you for having me. Bye-bye.
Away from that, let's bring you one of our top stories tonight. The Nigeria Customs Service has suspended the sale of seized food items over a stampede that claimed lives at its old zonal headquarters in the Yaba area of Lagos State, southwest Nigeria last Friday. A spokesperson for the Customs, Abdullahi Waiwada, announced this in a statement. The Customs had on February 20 said it would dispose seized food items to cushion the hardship and cost of living in the country. To start with, the Customs disposed food items at its Yaba office last Friday in the presence of other security agencies like the man of the Nigerian police. Now, outside of Nigeria, crisis talks called by Senegal's President Macky Sall entered their second day on Tuesday, aimed at setting a date for a presidential election he postponed, while civil society tried to mobilize support for a vote in the next few weeks. Senegal is grappling with its worst political crisis in decades after Sall's last-minute deferral of the February 25 election. The Constitutional Council overturned the delay, and Sall, whose second term expires on April 2, on Monday, launched 2 days of talks to set a new date. The Protect Our Election collective of over 100 civil society groups called for citywide shutdowns across the country and a general strike on Tuesday, demanding the poll take place before he leaves office. Up next is Business News.
Business News in association with Money Master PSB, the easy way to master your money.
Talking business now, the Central Bank of Nigeria has commenced the sale of dollars to bureau de change. This was announced in a statement signed by Dr. Hassan Mahmoud, CBN's Director of Trade and Exchange Department, on Tuesday, February 27. The Apex Bank said $20,000 will be available to each eligible bureau de change operator across the country. The amount, according to the Apex Bank, is to be sold to each BDC at the rate of 1,301 naira to a dollar, representing the lower band rate of executed spot transactions at the Nigerian Autonomous Foreign Exchange Markets, NAFEM, as of the previous trading day, which can be resold to end users at a margin not more than 1% above the purchase rate from the CBN. Still in Nigeria, its banking system is gradually shifting from conventional to digital banking, with the implementation of an artificial intelligence as a catalyst, disrupting the established norms within the traditional banking sphere. According to a survey by the Economist Intelligence Unit, 77% of banking professionals believe that the ability to harness the potential of AI will be the determining factor between triumph and failure for financial institutions. Projections suggest that by 2030, the incorporation of AI into financial services could yield savings exceeding $1 trillion, even as traditional banks are anticipated to curtail around 22% of their total costs through the adoption of AI. And away from Nigeria, we now tell you that President Nana Akufo-Addo emphasized Ghana's dedication to swiftly complete the external debt restructuring process during a State of the Nation address in Parliament. The West African country, which faced challenges after defaulting on most of its overseas debt in December 2022 due to escalating servicing costs, has successfully restructured a significant portion of its local debt. However, it still needs to reach an agreement with private holders of approximately $13 billion in international bonds. Akufo-Addo stressed the urgency of concluding the external debt restructuring to overcome the crisis and facilitate the advancement of projects that have been hindered by financial constraints. And that's all on Business News for tonight. Do stay with us. So we'll still continue with the stories. I am Lekon Onobanjo. Don't go away.
Business News in association with Money Master PSB, the easy way to master your money.
For the latest in sports, we are joined now by Babatunde Koiki. Babatunde, over to you.
Sports Update, brought to you by Corn Oil. Corn Oil, we go the extra mile.
Thank you very much, Felicity. Hello and welcome to Sports. Nigerian FC Porto defender Zaidu Sanusi has undergone a successful surgery in San Francisco in the United States of America. The defender was part of Nigeria's Super Eagles team to play in the final of the 2023 Africa Cup of Nations in Ivory Coast. Sanusi suffered a reoccurrence of an injury he sustained at the AFCON while playing for his club upon his return. According to updates from Portugal, the surgery supervised by Professor Jose Carlos Nozoronha was successful. The Nigerian international is expected to resume his rehabilitation soon, but will be out of action until next season. At least 3 key members of the Super Eagles are currently injured, including vice captain and 2023 AFCON player of the tournament, William Troost Ekong of PAOK in Greece, and Nottingham Forest wingback Ola Aina. And to the African Games now. Nigeria's national men's handball team, known as the Golden Arrows, will face reigning African champions Egypt in Group A of the handball event at the 13th Africa Games, which will hold in Ghana next month. In the draw, which was conducted over the weekend by the Confederation of African Handball, the Golden Arrows were paired in Group A alongside Egypt, Mali, and Togo. Coach Solomon Yola has invited 26 players to the pre-tournament camp in Lagos. The Golden Arrows have never won the African Games event. Their best placement was third-place finishes in Cairo in 1991, Harare in 1995, and Abuja in 2003, where they finished in fourth position in Brazzaville in 2015. To some sad news now. Sweden's Christopher Olsson has been hospitalized over an unidentified brain illness and put on a ventilator, according to his club FC Midtjylland. The 28-year-old midfielder fell unconscious in his own home on Tuesday, the 20th of February in 2024, and was taken to the Aarhus University Hospital. Also missed Midtjylland's two recent Danish Superliga matches and last featured for the club against Fredrikstad in the Atlantic Cup on the 9th of February. He came through Arsenal's youth academy and made one appearance for the Gunners before he joined Midtjylland permanently midway through the 2014-2015 Premier League season. And Namibia all-rounder Jan Nicol Lofty-Eaton has set a new record for the fastest T20 International 100 on Tuesday by hammering a 33-ball ton against Nepal in Kittirpur. In the opening game of the Tri-Series, also featuring the Netherlands, Lofty-Eaton smashed 11 fours and 8 sixes before being dismissed for 101 from 36 deliveries. The previous record was held by Nepal's Kushal Mala, who reached a T20 100 from 34 balls against Mongolia last year. And finally, Brighton winger Kaoru Mitoma is expected to miss the remainder of the season with a back injury. The Japan international, who is 26 years old, missed the Seagulls' 1-1 Premier League draw with Everton because of the issue. Brighton boss Roberto Di Zerbi confirmed that Mitoma's season is now expected to be over. Mitoma has featured for the Seagulls 26 times this season, scoring 3 goals and providing 6 assists to his name before suffering an ankle injury that kept him out of action for a month, seeing him miss the majority of Japan's Asia Cup campaign. And that's all we have on sports. It's back to you, Felicity.
Sports Update, brought to you by Corn Oil. Corn Oil, we go the extra mile.
For some entertainment stories now, we join Jadel Simon. Jadel, over to you.
Entertainment news in association with Glow Unlimited.
Nigerian singer Korede Bello is teaming up with former label boss Don Jazzy for a comeback single titled Minding My Business. Their past hits like Mongo Park and Godwin in 2017 have fans excited for this reunion. Produced by Don Jazzy, the single's teaser on social media already has fans buzzing. Speculation suggests a release on Korede Bello's birthday, February 29th, which would mean he'll be giving his fans a present on his special day. Away from that, the Ghanaian hip-life artist Kwakase has voiced his frustration over treatment post-arrest for alleged marijuana use. In an interview, he accuses authorities of unfairness, citing disparities in his treatment compared to foreigners. Kwakase claims that there's a lack of evidence during his arrest and is now demanding a compensation of $1 million for what he calls a government-induced disgrace. He argues that his arrest was based on speculations, highlighting the absence of proof for police accusations. The incident dates back to 2015. It resulted in a one-day jail term and a 1,200 naira fine. That's all we can take on entertainment tonight. We'll take a short break, and when we're back, we'll bring you the updates on what's trending tonight.
Entertainment news in association with Glow Unlimited.
Thank you for staying with us. Now, moving on from entertainment stories, let's tell you what is trending. Currently trending and causing a stir across social media platforms, especially on X, is BDCs. After a hiatus of 3 years, the Central Bank of Nigeria has resumed former dollar sales to bureau de change operators. The decision aimed at stabilizing the naira and reducing the disparity between official and unofficial exchange rates entails a weekly sales of $20,000 to each BDC at a rate of 1,301 naira per dollar. As outlined in a released circular, BDCs are permitted to sell to end users with a maximum margin of 1% above the purchase rate from the CBN. There have been different reactions on these developments. Let's read some reactions on X. Emmanuel is saying the same CBN that struggles to regulate the forex operations of the institutionalized banks will do a miracle in monitoring and regulating BDCs, which have merged and fused with roadside black market currency traders. Your optimism stems from a place of delusion, I'm sorry to say. Guru is saying, you called BDCs tools for speculation yesterday, fighting them with EFCC and police. Turnarounds to sell them dollars today. You claim subsidy is gone when dollar was 700 naira and market adjusted. Today, dollar is over 1,500 naira, but prices stay the same. I know what you are, whatever that means. Moving away from that, next up on what's trending is BVN and NIN. The central bank declared that as of April 2024, all banks accounts lacking a bank verification number and national identification number linked together will be subject to post-no debit. Now, this latest directive was communicated through a circular distributed to all deposit money banks by the central bank. Some banks have now put a 2-day deadline on this notice. Here's what some Nigerian ex-users had to say about this. Yemtech is saying, what is the issue with banks asking us to start linking our bank accounts with BVN and NIN again? Must they stress us with irrelevant issues all the time? Another tweet is saying, a reminder wouldn't be needed if everyone does it upon registration too. Your BVN and NIN are issued at once. Even if you have a change of name due to marriage and etc., only a single BVN or NIN is assigned to an individual. So why do you need to update if it was done initially? That's all we can take tonight on What's Trending. I am Jadel Simon. Thank you.
Many thanks, Jadel. I guess you have done your linking, have you?
Yes, I definitely have done my linking.
All right. Babatunde, your quick thoughts on the response by protesters to the situation in the country. Did you witness it anywhere?
Yeah, I did see a few people protesting. I mean, everyone can see that the situation is pretty bad right now. I'm actually thinking of going out to go and join them. So I'm wondering maybe I should go with ripped jeans or pots and pans, banging it together to show that I'm hungry as well.
Some would even say that it's only those that have money that will be going to the bank to link their BVN and their NIN. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Felicity.
Thank you, Felicity.
And that's all tonight. But before we go, let's take another look at some of the major stories. Central Bank of Nigeria has raised monetary policy rate to 22.75%. Nigeria Labour Congress has suspended its 2-day protest over economic hardship. Nigeria Customs has suspended sale of seized food items over stampede. We also brought you news that Senegal's president has sought to set date for delayed elections in ongoing crisis talks. Would like to hear from you. Please send us your eyewitness report. The number showing on your screen is what you can use. You can also share those information using our social media handles at News Central TV. We're live on DSTV channel 422. Star Times, channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. Many thanks, as always, for your kind company. Have a good night.